I've spent 15 years in therapy for myself and also 8 years of helping people to go through human suffering. And I have to say that I recognize few very specific patterns that are repeating, that did repeat for myself and from people. And I wanted to create a condensation of the 10 biggest advices I would have give myself 15 years ago when I was suffering, when I was an anxious person, when I was a depressed person, when I was having all those mental health issues or my eating disorder and addiction. And here today, I want to share with you those 10 ideas that have radically shifted my perspective in life and also have radically changed my whole life. So let's start. What I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna start the first one from the less important, and we're gonna increase importance from the first to the 10th. The first one is a very simple, basic, but so important and useful. The first advice I would have given myself 15 years ago is, Haidar, stop worrying about things on the future. The worry you have about things happening is 100 times more dangerous than the actual thing happening. And if we even don't talk about the fact that in 80% of case, the thing that you're worrying about will never happen, it means that you're worrying about an actual fantasy, an illusion that doesn't exist anywhere. It's just on your mind. And you're worrying about it, and you're stressing about it, and you feel bad about it. But even if that thing you're worrying about end up happening, then you realize that the thing happening, you even sometimes feel relief about it, because worrying about it, it's much worse than actually going through it. Because when you go through thing, you suddenly realize that they weren't that bad that you were expecting them for. They are in the present moment, mean that when it's happening, you have the possibility of acting, of like managing the thing or the situation, which doesn't exist when you're worrying, because you're worrying about something that doesn't here. It's on the future. So if it's on the future, you can't act on it. You can't change it. Of course, you can, for certain type of event or thing, be prepared or ready for it. But being prepared or ready for a situation have nothing to do with worries. It have to do with preparation. What does that mean? It doesn't mean you have to reject your worries or your anxiety about something, but you have to take it as a signal. This signal is telling you, first, that you're living in an illusion. Second, that there is a situation or event that is creating a tension, and you have to go back to the root of what it is saying and where can you act on it. But yeah, I think I've spent a lot of time worrying about things that never happened, and when they happened, I was very fine, even it was the thing that I needed to happen. So you see, it's a very simple, it's quite basic. Now we're gonna go a little bit deeper with the second one. The second one is, stop asking yourself, who am I? I remember back on the days I was obsessed with that question, like literally obsessed with the question, who am I? Thinking that if I allow enough time, resources, and introspection, I will find an answer. But I couldn't find it. I was like, am I this person? Or am I that? Or am I this? Or am I that? And it is very, very, like on those days, everyone is asking himself, who am I? And I think that is a very dangerous question because the answer is quite tricky. To answer who am I, we have to start by answering who am I not? And that is very powerful. This single thing that I about to tell you have completely changed my life. The day I understood I am not my thoughts. I'm not my mental. I'm not this little voice on my head who is constantly talking. Because this voice, those thoughts are simply neuronal connection into my brain, and it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's meaningful. It doesn't mean it's important. Because if you're like me, especially back on the days, you have a lot of thoughts that are judgeful, fearful, thoughts that are low quality thoughts that are about being judgeful about even yourself, like, this inner criticism voice. And I think that if you identify as this voice, then you're taking it forward, then you're taking it seriously, then you're listening to it. You're listening to your thinking, and you think something like, because I'm thinking it, it means it's true. And you don't question it. And that's how most people go through life. They believe every single crazy thought that goes through their brain. And the day I understood I don't have to do that, I can give up on believing on this, it did completely change my life. Because I found peace and serenity. I saw that I can just observe those thoughts without believing them. But that go deeper than that. Who am I not? I'm not my past. I'm not my trauma. I'm not the stories I tell myself about. I'm not the stories people tell myself about. I'm not those stories. Those stories are just stories. They are just memories of the past that are here in the present moment. It means that I cannot go through life by being stuck on those stories. And I had to stop believing that's who I am. I am not my past, and I'm not my name. I could have worn another name. I'm not even my body. I'm not my body. How can I say that? We discover that, your body, you have your organ, your tissue, your cells, and all those tissues are constituted of atoms. Those atoms gonna renew themselves. And that's what I have here. It's like a vulgarization. It's not like every 7 years, all the atoms that constitute your body have been renewed, changed. What does it mean? It means that the body you have today have one atom in common from the one you had 10 years ago. I mean, I have been completely renewed, but you're still the same person. It means that who you are is not connected to your body. Your body can change, you're still the same person, right? So if you're not any of that, you're not your body, you're not your story, you're not your belief, you're not your thoughts, you're not your name, you're not your work. Some people really identify through their work. So the day they lose their work, they lose their identity and they go into deep depression because they lose it. They lose themselves because they thought themselves is the work. Is they are like work. So if you're not any of this, who am I? You are who the fuck you want to be. You are the freedom of experiencing whatever you want to experience. You are this free field of having experiences. So the question is not who am I, is who I want to be. Not in the future, who I want to be right now, here. Who I want to be. What type of experiences, what do I want to cultivate? And that does change everything. Because you're not trying to guess the future. You start to actually create it, build it. And that is a major, major shift. So this is the second advice. Stop asking who you are. Create it. The third one is connected, and it's stop looking for the right answer, the right diet, the right place, the right person, the right partner, the right decision, the right career. Stop looking for the right. Because right and wrong are illusion. It doesn't exist outside of your brain, outside of your perspective. And the problem with that is that when you believe you can choose wrong or you can do wrong, then you become anxious. Then you don't want to make decision because you are imagining a fantasy, which is there is like an external entity that is looking at you, knowing which is the right decision and trying to see if you're gonna do it right or doing wrong. And guess where that come from? It come from our childhood, where we were, we were taught that we need to make the right decision, do right, and being judged by it. And then you go through life by thinking, I need to make the right decision. What if there is no right decision? There is no right decision. In absolute, there is none. There is options, different options. And each of those options have an infinite possibility of the best and the worst. Every single decision you make open an infinity or new other decision. So it's not about one decision. It's about every decision, and every decision contain the worst and the best. And very often it's a mix of both. So the question is not anymore what is the right decision, is what decision I want to make. I know they're equivalent not because they're the same, but equivalent because there is no right or wrong. There's just the one I want to take. What come from a place of love, joy, excitement? I take this decision, not because it's the right one, but because that's the one I want to take. And sometimes you're gonna very much know that there is a decision which is gonna lead you to bad consequences, uncomfortable consequences, I should say, but you're gonna do it anyway. And that's completely fine. That is completely fine. Because remember, you're just the field where you can experience things. Well, stop looking for the right and the wrong. Do whatever you want. Right and wrong doesn't exist. Then, related to that, the fourth idea is stop looking for the truth. We often are looking for the truth through self-development, spirituality, books, science, stuff. So we can argue on the fact that there is like an absolute reality, like a material outside reality. Even on that we could discuss, but that's not the topic of this video. I'll come back about it another time. But what we have to do is to comprehend the idea that you're not living in the world. You're living in your own you world. What does that mean? It means that the truth is not something you can understand, because understanding go through thoughts, go through words, but words are only symbols. Words are symbols, they're not the truth. So each time you try to gap the truth with your hands, with your thoughts, then it escapes. Because the truth is not something you understand. Truth is something you feel. You feel it. And what is very important for you to understand is that this truth, no one else on the whole universe have access to it. Because I've spent so many years gaslighting myself by always thinking that the truth of other, their taste, their opinion, their sensitivity was more right than my own. And a lot of you, that if you're listening to me, also have this, you always think that how you feel about something, or how you see something, or your own perspective on it is not right. You should try to understand what other think, because you don't give legitimacy to your own truth. But your truth have no thing to do with others. Your truth doesn't need to be legitimated by anyone or anything outside of you, because it is your own truth that's defined by your own perspective, sensitivity, taste, etc., etc. Means that you get free the day you stop looking for the universal truth that doesn't exist, and you start to explore your own truth. What is true for you in terms of feeling, emotion, sensation, and you go through that. Fifth ID, I would have given myself, advice I would have given myself. What people think of you have nothing to do about you. It's not just the idea, oh, don't give a shit about what people think. No, it's deeper than that, much deeper than that. The idea here is that when people think something, have an opinion about you, it's actually not about you. It's about them. Not about them in a self-development way. It's actually that they have an opinion not on you. They have an opinion on the version, the fantasy, the avatar they have created of you on their own mind, inside their own world, which doesn't exist. It's not you, it's them projecting who you are, how they see you as. And it works the same way from your side. When you think of someone, you're not thinking of that person. You're thinking of the way you see, imagine, and of course there is an interaction of who is this person is, but that is not actually what you can't access who this person is. The only thing you can access is your own representation. On this idea here about, the fear of other judgment, which is an illusion, because no one can see you. Everyone see themselves, and you only see yourself. No one meets you. Everyone meets themselves. That's a very deep topic. And I've already worked in a video which I go deep into this. I do explain it in a very small part. If you want to explore that idea, I'm gonna put the link here and on the description. You can go to look at it just after this one. But that is very important to understand. No, when people have an opinion on you, it's not about you. It's about them, because people doesn't have access to you. Even you struggle to have access to yourself. So imagine others. The sixth advice I would have given myself is that the big paradox that I see is that the more you want to change, the more you live with goals, self-discipline, self-motivation, wanting to heal, wanting to transform, wanting all those things, the more you're stuck. Why is that? It's because, you know, sometimes the reality, the present moment is hard to deal with. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's heavy. Sometimes it's not as egotically convenient as the fantasy of myself on the future. Who I gonna be when I have money? Who I gonna be when I'm healed? Who I gonna be when I gonna successful? Who I gonna be? You know, this fantasy that doesn't exist, it will never exist. Not because you're not gonna succeed or have money, but just because when you're gonna have it, you're gonna be on the present moment. So the future doesn't exist. Because when you go on the future, it becomes the present moment. So you really never meet the future. So every time you're thinking about the future, you're not ambitious. That's what I was thinking. I'm talking to myself 15 years ago, remember? You're not ambitious, Haidar. You're not self-disciplined. You are escaping. You're trying to escape who you are and your present because you don't have the courage to afford it, to embrace it, to deal with it. And the paradox is what? The more you try to change, the more you're in the future. But you can't change in the future because future is an illusion, remember? So the only place you can really change is here, right now. So the paradox is that the day you give up on being someone else and you give up on, this constant addiction to goals and future and accomplishment, that's when the real change starts to happen. And you can observe that there's people who are doing psychology, self-improvement for decades. A little bit have changed around them, but they're still the same person. Nothing had really changed. They're going through the same pattern again and again and again and again and again. Because the more you try to change, the more you are getting stuck. So my advice will give up. Stop running from the present moment. Stop running from yourself. Have the courage to meet yourself where you are with all the great, but also all the struggles, the pain, the weakness, all the things you don't really like. That is where you need to be. Time for number 7. The 7th lesson is simple, but no one talks about it. And is that you are addicted to control. Everyone is talking about addiction, but no one talks about this one, which is addiction to control food, through dieting, to try to control your body, your weight, to try to control others, to try to control your emotions, to try to pretty much control the whole circumstances, which is, and you probably agree with me, not very successful. But the problem in controlling is that you create a junction, a separation between your mind and your body. So there is a war between them, your mental is trying to control the body, but your body hates to be controlled. So he's fighting back. But it's not only that, is when you're an addict of control, when you have this addiction, then it's taking so much space, energy, and it gets you exhausted. And on top of that, it disconnects you not only from yourself, but also from other. It disconnects you from life, because life doesn't like control. It's not about control. So control can be very useful in few circumstances. But when you are like me, this control has been developed very early in life as a defense mechanism. We're going to see why, to defend from what. But when you started that very early, then control become even like a structure of your psyche, and it takes all the space, and I believe it becomes extremely toxic, because it disconnects you from your needs, from your limits, and it will push you to places you don't want to be. And you probably are there or have been there or going there. And that's most of the topic I talk about. For example, eating disorder is a direct consequence of this addiction, control addiction, which I talk about on my videos. So to understand this point about addiction to control, we need also the eighth one, which is why does human being go through self-destructing behavior through addiction? What's the purpose? There's one thing we know is that every behavior we have a purpose. It serves a goal. What is the goal of all the addiction and a lot of human suffering? The goal of addiction is anesthesia, avoidance, trying to not feel something that your system decided is too dangerous to feel. What I'm just saying here is the most important piece I could give about these 15 years of therapy, is that the root cause of every addiction is trying to avoid to feel something. And that's probably because on your childhood, some feelings were overwhelming, sadness, anger, humiliation, guilt, abandonment, rejection. There were feelings that were overwhelming, and your psyche want to survive as your body, so it decided to shut down the feeling because it's overwhelming and it's a threat to your survival, emotion, identity survival, sometimes physical survival. So it decided can't be going through that feeling. So it decided this feeling is dangerous, never again. And then we go through life for decades developing addiction and mechanism to try to protect ourselves from unconsciously from trying to protect ourselves from feeling that emotion, when actually the healing would be to give up on those mechanisms and to actually make space for that feeling that our psyche decided that is too dangerous. Because the real danger is not to feel the feeling, is not to let your body express this emotional magma. The real danger is all the mechanism you've put, for example, control addiction around it to try to not leave it. So one of the big work I do with my clients is to help them to relieve the control and to actually do the work of making the space to feel everything, especially the thing you don't want to feel. Because as you can see, life is constantly throwing you opportunities of feeling that emotion you don't want to feel. If you have the fear of abandonment and rejection, of course you're going through life with a lot of those patterns repeating and repeating and repeating. And as far as you keep resisting, refusing, using addiction to stories, to like mental addiction, to not welcome that feeling, then it will keep repeating. That is the root cause. So we don't heal from eating disorder by going against the symptoms. We don't treat the symptoms. What we do is to work on the root cause, which is what I just explained, feeling everything. And when you do so, then eating disorder or addiction to control, any addiction, lost its purpose. And when addiction lost its purpose or any behavior lost its purpose, it have the tendency to disappear. So healing is not the goal. Healing is the consequence. The goal is to feel everything. Remember the first advice? You are a field of feeling. You are a being of feeling. So we have to accept to feel everything, especially the pain. The 9, we getting closer to the most important, and this one is so major. It's gonna sound a bit absurd, but stay with me. I'm gonna explain it. Look at the clouds. Look at the birds. Listen to the kids laughing. Sit down, let the sun touch your skin. It sounds crazy. It sounds not useful. It sounds not important. Let me tell you that there is nothing more important than contemplation. You know, there is this philosopher, Schopenhauer, who said something not very enthusiastic. He said, life is like a clock which goes between desire and boredom. Why is that? Because human beings can only desire what they don't have. You desire what you don't have. And because you don't have it, you suffer. So you start running, rushing, doing, till you obtain your desire, till you have it, thinking you're going to be filled. You're going to finally arrive. But what happened? When you get your desire, then you have it. So you're not lacking it anymore. And because you're not lacking it anymore, you don't desire anymore. So what happened? You start to feel bored, start to feel empty and meaningless. So what do you want to do? You want to escape that feeling of boredom, which is so important. I think being able to feel boredom is such a beautiful and important skill. But I will talk about it in another video. So you feel bored. And when you feel bored, you want to escape feeling bored. So what do? You find a new desire. So you constantly suffering between desire and boredom. That's quite sad, no? If you think about life in this way. But this Schopenhauer said something. He said there is one and single escape. One and single escape. This escape is contemplation, is doing something which is being present to what it is without any utility, without any purpose other than the thing. And I firmly believe that there is nothing more important than those moments, because you're always running and rushing after the things you have to do. But where is that taking you? Where are you going? I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to the exact same place as where I am going. Means to the grave, to dust. So what is the purpose of being alive if it's to run and rush all the time? You have to sit down. Just notify when you're leaving your house and taking your car or train or bus or dragon or bird, or I don't know how you move. But when you do that, just notify the space where there's a smell of good food, or maybe the smell of flowers, or the smell of shit, whatever smell, just notify it. Be present to it. And, you know, when the sun touches your skin, can you, before you rush to respond to that email, can you sit down and feel that? That is what's most precious, you know? I've lost my sister 2 years ago. And the last time I saw her, I didn't know it was the last time. I had no idea. no idea, couldn't be expected. And we were around the lake walking, and we had an ice cream. So happy that we both gave up on dieting. We stopped dieting way before, so we were able to have an ice cream together. And I didn't know that was the last instant of walking and eating an ice cream with my sister. And at the moment, I was an idiot. And because I was an idiot, I was thinking, oh, I need to respond to that email, and I want to do that and do it. And everything seemed so serious. And eating an ice cream with my sister seemed quite unuseful. Which, till I die, it's probably the most important, significant experience I had. But I didn't know. And I wasn't present as much I would. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets. So being present is actually being alive. And if you're not alive, what's the point? You're not alive. You're not awake. You're just rushing. You're just running. You're running from being born to being dead. What is on the middle? What happened? What's the sense of having the most beautiful house, the most beautiful kids, the most beautiful everything, if you can't enjoy it because you're not here to enjoy it? You know what I mean? So look at the clouds, look at the birds, look at the landscape, look at people smiling, look at faces, look at eyes, being present to the smell of your coffee. The taste of it. That's what we can do. And last one, the 10th one, memento mori. Memento mori is a Latin expression which was used to say, remember of your mortality. Remember you're going to die. Don't take your life too seriously. You know, people tend to take everything so serious. Money, work, thing. They are important. I need to be safe. I need to protect. I need to prepare. I need to... It's absurd. Life is so ephemeral. And we all going to the same place. Just do whatever feels right to do. Just play the game of life, but don't forget it's a game. It was never serious. You knew that when you were a kid. When you were a kid, you knew that everything was a game, but you forgot. You become an adult and started to take taxes and work and you know, all those things too seriously. Maybe you need to relax, to go back to your childhood energy and to play. Because as I do, you're gonna die and you don't even know when. So be here, do whatever you feel to do, don't take it too seriously, enjoy the trip. And if any of the ideas I've shared with you today seems useful, makes sense for you, please let me know on the comment section. I'll be very happy to read you, especially if you're still here listening to what I said. I will be very excited to read you. So let me a comment. And I'm also excited to meet you on the next episode. Have a good one. Au revoir.